Again, I would request that you sit with your country delegation. If you're with the international community, there are separate tables to the left of the room or to the right of the room if you're facing. Thank you. So once again, good morning. My name is Jeff Pruitt. I'm the deputy at the Regional Center. It's been a real pleasure to have been with all of you for the last 3 days. If I could kindly, Nina, if people can kindly take their seats, we'd really like to start. We're running a bit behind time. I'm sorry that you'll have to hear my voice once again. I must say I'm feeling a bit lonely up here on the podium, so if anyone would like to join me, they're welcome. But I will be brief. We want to move directly into working group sessions. It seems that the great sights of Cairo provide considerable attraction. Our numbers have thinned slightly. However, I still believe we have a good quorum to try and come up with some concrete results this morning. I think for the past 3 days, we've heard the opportunities and challenges of the democratic transition process taking place in the Arab region. And it's clear from the discussions that we've had that success will depend on a collective effort between government, civil society, media, and the international community. A focus has been given to governance assessments as well as the Universal Periodic Review, underpinned, I think, by very strong local dimensions to development in the name of social accountability. And this has been against the backdrop of Tahrir Square and people continuing to try and open up space for freedom and dialogue and ensure that there's not a return to the past. And I think we all admire the courage that has been illustrated over the course of the last 2 years so that people enjoy the basic human dignities that are required for well-being, family, and good life. The intention this morning, since we've spent the last 3 days deliberating, is to look very quickly. We understand this has been an exhausting 3 days. It's been a long journey. It's a bit like squeezing water from a dry rock. But we're still going to attempt to have one last session which will enable you to come up with some concrete recommendations that you will take back to your selective countries. This will not be a difficult exercise. There's been a number of very solid recommendations that have been issued over the course of the 3 days, but now it's about prioritization. So I'm going to request that people really focus on prioritization. I'd also like to say, and this has been reiterated throughout the last 3 days, this is about a process. It's not necessarily about the end product. The process has been listening to others, exchanging ideas, networking, finding feasible partnerships, and that's equally as significant, I think, as the final outcome. So I do just want to reiterate the significance of the process, and we're so pleased that all of you traveled quite far to be with us. And I include my colleagues in Egypt, knowing the traffic and the congestion that they have to face. So I very much appreciate their time as well. So I would like to introduce what we're proposing for the next hour. We will move into country working groups by delegation. Some delegations are larger than others. I think for a country to have a quorum, it will require at least 4 people. For those country delegations that are currently under 4 people, I suggest that maybe, like our dear colleagues from Iraq, I suggest that you join another country delegation based on typology. That could be a net contributing country, it could be a least developed country, it could be post-conflict. I don't want to define typologies because that's a whole dangerous terrain. But I would suggest that those countries that have less than 4 people, they selectively choose to join another delegation. There are also tables for the international community, such as those from regional bodies, NGOs, that may or may not fit into a specific country delegation. I will share with you information on the working group shortly, and they're currently being circulated in the 3 languages. We will spend at least 45 minutes to 1 hour in trying to respond to these questions, and they will also be placed up on the screen. We'll have a coffee break, and then we will reconvene for a report back of roughly 3 to 5 minutes, where country working groups will present some of their ideas, and then we'll close with final recommendations and remarks from the director of the regional center. And then we've concluded the event. This afternoon, there will be a side event focused on the social development goals and the post-2015 framework. We think that was an interesting discussion, and therefore we would encourage all of you to attend from 2 o'clock until 5 o'clock. Now, what is it that we want you to do in the next hour? Each table should appoint a chair or a moderator as well as a rapporteur. The rapporteur will be responsible for reporting back during the plenary. We would like that you spend the first 20 minutes to discuss general impressions of the past 4 days. This is about trying to capture some of the process elements. What were some of the key ideas that emerged? Some of the key recommendations that might influence your organizational position or your response to social accountability. But beyond focusing on substance, as this was a rather experimental event, we would also like for you to focus on the process. Was there an opportunity to network? What were some of the shortcomings of this event? Perhaps there wasn't enough time for question and answer. We would like to hear that feedback as well. We're looking for constructive feedback. So that will occupy the first 20 minutes of your time. Then, more importantly, for the last 40 minutes, we would like you to answer the following question. What, from the perspective of country delegations, are the 2 most important key actions or steps that you will take forward in the next year to enhance social accountability in your country? There have been a number of actions and recommendations that we've heard. Again, this is about being feasible and being pragmatic, and also looking at something that can be pursued over the course of the next year. The intention is we will document all of these and they will be contained in the report. So we would like only 1 or 2 key recommendations per country. Now that might be difficult, I think, in some of the larger working groups. You may actually consider breaking yourselves up, like Morocco or Sudan, into smaller clusters to make it more manageable. But the intention is we really want very practical 3-line recommendations that we can monitor and follow up, that is going to be addressed collectively. This is not necessarily about UNDP or a civil society organization or a government, but it's really about working collectively towards a common output. Are there any questions? Is that agreeable? Excellent. I will put the questions up on the screen, and we would request that you commence within your country delegations for the next hour. So the first 20 minutes more on the process of the event, and the final 40 minutes trying to arrive at some very specific recommendations or key action steps that can be taken forward within the time frame of the next year. And we would like to follow up on these and provide support as we can. Thank you. It's clear? It's clear? Clear? Be certain to nominate a chair to facilitate the session and a rapporteur who will be responsible for reporting back. Also, please write down your recommendations in whatever language you would like, because we will also be collecting them.
عندي واحد في فرنسا ويقعد معانا. اتفضل يا فندم.
If you've concluded your general impression, start to shift into key recommendations. And again, please be as practical as possible. If you've concluded your general impressions, please start to move into specific recommendations and actions. wrap up your comments in 5 minutes or so. If you'd like to continue to work over the coffee break, that's perfectly acceptable. About 5 minutes, please.
To tell at the time you find
That haven't concluded, they can continue over the coffee break, but please return promptly to the room by 11:20. Pastries, 11. Those that would like to continue, please do so over the coffee break. Be prepared to present your final recommendations at 11:20. Thank you. Please start to return to your seats. Please start to return to your seats. Okay, if you could please take your seats. We're going to commence the next session, perhaps the most valuable session of our 4 days, so if people could settle. Can I ask those in the back to please take your seats? Very good. I think we now have a quorum. I will give another 30 seconds just prior to starting. Thank you very much for what I think was a very rich discussion. We now have an opportunity to hear back from our colleagues as to what they will be taking forward over the course of the next year. If I can have everyone's attention, please. If the side questions can conclude, that would be very helpful. Okay, we're now going to hear feedback from our colleagues. What we propose is roughly 3 to 5 minutes per country delegation. So I will ask that you're succinct. The intention is perhaps 1 minute on general impressions of the event, both substance and process, and then the remaining time dedicated to specific recommendations that will be taken forward in the course of the year. All of this will be very carefully documented and contained in the final report. Therefore, to avoid any confusion, as requested, we hope that people have written down their action points in order that we can collect them. There is always a question of protocol as to who should start, so very sensibly I'm going to do it alphabetically. If we can please hear from the Algerian delegation first. Algeria, the table is yours.
شكرا. بعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الأخوات والإخوة السلام عليكم. باسم الوفد الجزائري تحية خالصة لكل الإخوة في المنطقة العربية والوفود الأجنبية المنتمية لمختلف الهيئات، وخاصة لبرنامج الإنمائي للأمم المتحدة والمشرفين على هذا المؤتمر، وكذلك المفوضية السامية لحقوق الإنسان ومختلف التنظيمات الموجودة في هذا المؤتمر. بخصوص الملاحظة حول مجريات هذه الجلسات، يرى الوفد الجزائري بأن ما يجري الآن في المنطقة العربية يختلف باختلاف البلدان، وهناك أيضا اختلاف في وتيرة الإصلاحات، ذلك لأن التحولات الديمقراطية في المنطقة العربية بدأت منذ مدة طويلة، كالتجربة الجزائرية، حيث بدأ الحراك السياسي في نهاية الثمانينات، وكانت أحداث أليمة أدت إلى إصلاحات. نحن الآن نعيش منذ 99 محطة لتقييم تلك الإصلاحات من أجل تصحيح الإعوجاجات والاختلالات التي حدثت في خلال تجربة أحداث 88. نرى بأن المنظمين ركزوا في هذا المؤتمر على بعض النماذج واختاروا عدد معين من الدول دون الدول الأخرى، وكأن الموضوع يخص فقط المنطقة أو البلدان العربية.
The Arab regions which have gone through the Arab Spring, although we have some reservation about this name Arab Spring, because there were some uprisings which were also very positive, and for sure they are positive because they push forward the reforms, and the reforms pays in all Arab countries. That's why it was much better. The conference would deal with women's rights, for example, the role of the civil society in the democratization, and then every country will talk about their experience, because there are positive practices of the good governance. There are practices of governance in some of the Arab countries. It doesn't mean that what's happening now means that in the past we didn't have any positive thing. So the methodology or the wisdom necessitates to, yes, document the transitions, and also to evaluate the previous experiences and to know the positives and the cons and the pros of every reforms and experiences. According to what's in this conference. As for our suggestions, we have 3 points. The first is pertaining to the necessity of the enforcement of consultation amongst the actors in the UPR, whether the state, at the national level, at the regional, at the international levels, the government, the civil society, and media. This is very important because the experience that we have in Algeria and the Economic Social National Council organized a number of seminars and sessions at the local level, at the country level, and then we have a national conference, took into consideration all the reports and regulations and suggestions and proposals resulted from these seminars. At the very first level, I think the Social Economic National Council is responsible for evaluating the social and economic policies in the country. So they identified all the problems, all the challenges facing the economic and social development of the country, and this includes at the local level all the actors, the elected municipal representatives, parliamentarians, the local administration, and the executive council representing all the executive power, and with the concentration of the administration, and also media, all mass media, the public and also the private and the civil society organizations. So it was very frank. Personally, I was elected at that time. I attended such kind of discussion, and it was a kind of scrutiny of everything pertaining to social and economic policies, and the problems and the weaknesses, whether at the administration level and also at the judicial level, and everything that was crowned by suggestions. And later we have also at the level of the different states of our country, we have 4 or 5 state or semi-local meetings, and then the national conference, which come up with a regulation. Such regulations were submitted by the head of the council to the president of the country, and they were submitted later to the government in order to be translated in legislations. And that was through a number of meetings in 2011, and Later, in 2012, a number of laws laws were issued in January 2012, and taking into consideration all the recommendations mentioned in these conferences and meetings. The second point is to enhance and build the capacity of other actors such as civil society organizations and media in order to enhance independence of these actors and to guarantee that they are effective in playing the role, and this is through having a legislative framework to guarantee them to access to information and to get the information, and with legal provisions and texts explicitly identified it, and also to have executive regulations on how to enforce such texts on the ground, to have very specific responsibilities. And between two inverted commas, we would like to appreciate the efforts of the countries which issued laws to guarantee access to information. My third and last point is that the necessity to support the coordination amongst the civil society organizations and media, with the importance of the UPR, whether at the national level, regional level, or international level alike, and to motivate especially the media and civil society organizations, the necessity to be engaged and involved in the UPR process. And we have an example at the regional level is the experience of Algeria with NEPAD, and also with the peer review mechanism at the level of the African continent. It is through a group of experts sent by NEPAD, or the African mechanism of the peer review, and such reports were submitted in the summit. And the president submitted or presented the report in front of all the peers, and to listen to criticism and also recommendations, taking them back home, and then delegating a committee in order to implement all the recommendations resulted from the summit, and then they put an action plan in order to implement all these resolutions or recommendations. Pertaining to the actors, that's to say civil society organizations and media, we also suggest providing training courses or workshops in order to involve them and include them in the UPR process. And that happened in the Arab Human Rights Commission in order to enforce the UPR at the level of the Arab level, and this is a new model. We hope that this will be supported and be successful, because we have the opportunity to know exactly where are in the performance, because this is the first experience in order to apply the Arab Human Rights Charter. And personally, I was representing the National Committee of Human Rights in Algeria, and it was an open discussion, an interactive discussion, and allowed us to know the experiences of the countries which were reviewed before us, which is Jordan, and they preceded us in this. Very briefly, we should be focused باختصار. The last point, I just would like to tell you that we should be focused in the coming meetings and proceedings, that is on the laws, and the laws with a timeline and deadlines, and not to have such conferences to be seasonal. So I hope that all countries will put a timeline for this, and to identify who will be, and to meet on a regular basis to have a kind of follow-up of these results. Thank you.
Shukran, merci. Excellent comments. You've set the tone, sir. I will now move on to the next delegation, which is a particularly large one. This is Bahrain, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. The floor is yours.
Sorry. Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay. So we have a big delegation for the Gulf countries represented from Kuwait, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia. And what we did, we deliberated, we'll try to be very concise and to the point as requested. And we'll try to summarize the points about the workshop in general and our meeting and then the recommendations. Basically, the social accountability is not well defined and out of context in general. The term needs to be clearly defined within the different social and cultural context. The experiences presented need to be more factual, and there should have been more audience interaction and in-depth discussions. Media engagement should have stronger representation, and the Governance Week has been beneficial for the CSO, government representatives, and networking efforts on the positive side. So we don't want to end it with a negative note. It was very well, the networking part was really beneficial to all, and it's excellent. For the technical actions or the two recommendations that we did, we summarized them in two basic ones: technical action and advocacy, outreach, information, education. But under each, for the technical action, under it we have 3 points: improving the definition of social accountability and developing indicators, benchmarks, and mechanisms for assessing social accountability in the Gulf sub-region. So we really want to expand it beyond our individual countries and go beyond that. The second is strategic initiatives for transparency and accountability, including anti-corruption, with 3, Arabic social accountability knowledge portal. We have keep some kind of a roster or a portal that everybody can come and benefit from. For the second point, or the second comment, the second recommendation is advocacy, outreach, information, and education actions, and under it another 3 points. Post-2015 social accountability advocacy strategy for the Gulf sub-region. 2, regional bilingual experts roster in social accountability, with 3, CSO private sector and media capacity workshop on Gulf sub-regional. And just to end the note, thanks to everybody who participated for the great effort and the large number, but I would like to say a specific thank you for the ladies and the gentlemen on the black and white. They were really extraordinary in helping. So thanks to all.
Thank you for that. I would also like to give, I'm sorry, I should also give Algeria an applause for their presentation. They did a great job, so thank you. Okay, we will move on to Djibouti, the Djibouti delegation. Djibouti? Sir. Excuse me, Djibouti and Somalia. My apologies. Somaliland and Somalia. My apologies.
Tout d'abord, je tiens à vous remercier et à remercier le PNUD pour avoir organisé cette brillante rencontre qui a été fort enrichissante et pour la région en vue d'instaurer un climat de confiance en
region in order to stabilize an atmosphere of trust in the citizens. Thank you once more. First, I would like to thank the organizers of this important regional event. During these 4 days, which were very fruitful in terms of governance, I think that the majority of the participants in this regional gathering have managed as well to understand some important concepts which would be very useful to them in order to create an atmosphere of trust between the citizens and the state and the civil society. If I am to summarize what we have reached from this event, we may summarize it in 2 points. First, the importance of enabling and the access of information in order for better social accountability. The second point, boosting and enhancing the role of civil society and the media in order to boost governance. I forgot to say that I'm speaking in the name of the Djibouti delegation, but there's my colleague Anissa from Somalia, and also there is an Excellency Minister from Somalia. In terms of the procedures to be taken, first, drafting a legal framework or boosting, because there is already a legal framework in these countries, but how would we boost and strengthen the legal framework in order to stress the importance of governance and to stress the importance of drafting mechanisms with which we can increase transparency and social accountability. Second, boosting coordination and harmony between different governmental institutions and the active parties, including the civil society and the media, in order to strengthen the so-called sovereignty of law. All of this through enabling access of important information in the Arab world and for more transparency in terms of provision of public services. Thank you very much.
صباح الخير من مصر. أحب بداية أشكر كل.
At the beginning, I would like to extend my thanks to the organizers and the technical assistants. Thank you for the effort exerted, and it's clear. In fact, we are a different group from donor entities, governmental agencies, and the National Council for Women, the National Council for Human Rights, and we all agreed on the importance of social accountability, particularly the importance of legal framework, economic and social framework, and the period that Egypt is going through. In fact, the Egyptian group say that we should work on two parallel tracks. The first track is to focus on awareness raising. The second is to enhance laws and legislations. As for the first track, we stressed on raising the awareness of the civil society and decision makers, particularly the issue of social accountability, its impact, and the mechanisms to apply such accountability. And we found out that we have a major requirement is to have a nucleus in order to raise awareness. Hence, we recommend to build capacity certain groups of the society, among which decision makers and the media, to be nucleus for training others, particularly civil society, NGOs, and decision makers, in order to have more awareness regarding social accountability and disseminating the culture of social accountability. Hence, we can depend on a database in ANSA, which includes a number of civil society and even governmental agencies, and it is focusing on social accountability. And upon the database in ANSA, we can depend it to play a coordination role to raise awareness in the Egyptian society. As for the second track, is enacting laws and regulations and legislation. Its major objective is to empower all parties of the society by formulating specific laws and certain texts in the constitution in order to empower the parties of the society to be able to apply social accountability. Hence, we recommend the right of social accountability and to take necessary and positive measures, and this should be stipulated in the constitution in the articles of rights and freedom, so that each and every part and text of the constitution should be implemented, and then should be done through mechanisms and enacting legislations and laws at all levels of service providing. And when I formulate the budget and when I evaluate and assess, this should all be included. And we have a major component and requirement, which is information accessibility law, which is very important. And this is a major step, which is the base upon which the civil society and other parts of society will be able to implement social accountability through transparency and social accountability mechanisms. Hence, I should have awareness and enough knowledge and information regarding social accountability. Hence, we recommend information accessibility and in enacting laws and legislation serving such issue. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. شكرا.
Thank you, Egypt. We now turn to Iraq and Sudan. The floor is yours.
شكرا جزيلا. طيب احنا مجموعة.
Thank you. We are Iraq and Sudan, and before we will start our giving our presentation, we would like to mention that we have some individuals. Our colleague from the World Bank, he was with our group, which was an honor for us. And we would like to thank the regional office for organizing this workshop, and the UNDP in Sudan that fact exerted a huge effort in organizing the Sudani delegate and in selecting and choosing the individuals who will be part of this delegation, and in gathering, in fact, and gathering a group of people that we were able to tackle the issue in transparency and opening in order to move forward regarding this conference. Now I will be presenting our report, both Iraq and Sudan. In fact, we had a consultative point of view regarding the question raised, and we will be working on the three axes. The first axis regarding governance management, the importance to work in raising awareness and the concept of social accountability at all levels, starting from the simple individual and citizens, the organizations of civil society and private sector as well. And this is through a participatory approach by all agencies and institutions and entities. Second point is conducting dialogues between the media, the civil society organization and private sector regarding the concept of social accountability. And this should be with the participation of the United Nations in order to provide technical assistance and to guarantee these recommendations. As for the third axis or point regarding the budget, in fact, it took a lot of time from us in dialogue, and what we would like to do regarding the budget. We agreed that we should work to set a budget and to explain these concepts in order to make it easy to understand these concepts. Sometimes the budget is not understood, it's ambiguous on how they set this budget. Hence, we agreed that these procedures and concepts should be simple in order to understand and to have effective participation, and in order and for all stakeholders to play an effective role and in understanding the budget and in following up its implementation and how to allocate and to monitor its implementation, and also connecting to connect this budget upon objectives and not figures, and also the participatory measures should be taken regarding the formulation of the budget. As despite the government in fact claiming that the budget is set in a participatory approach, but in fact we see is that the outcome of the budget is not expressing such a participatory approach, and why security we have more allocations for security rather than education or health sector. And the third point is corruption. We agreed that it's very important the Commission for combating corruption, and he mentioned is that setting a project, and we hope that by the coming year to set a projects regarding self-evaluation in order to implement the United Nations agreement regarding anti-corruption, that the state should evaluate to evaluate the existing situation and to prepare a strategy to combat corruption, and then to table out or to raise this convention in order to be ratified and endorsed. Regarding the United Nations for Anti-Corruption, and after this ratification of the convention, we should conduct another assessment to measure corruption in the service providing agencies. It's very important to disseminate and to raise awareness and culture for regarding the right of the citizen to call for combating corruption through legislations that will ensure for the citizen to guarantee his rights and to have the right of disclosure, and without having a political will, this will never be implemented. It's this political will, in fact, should be by the government, and this will never be created unless we have a pressure and transparency in the mechanisms in order to put pressure on the governments, why the governments don't want to apply disclosure and transparency mechanisms. Hence, if this is the optimal cause, we should have the means to implement such in order. The final or the last point, the UPR. We in fact agreed to be concerned regarding all stakeholders in preparing such UPR, and also such review of the comprehensive report regarding social accountability, and to form joint committees between the government, the civil society and the private sector in order to follow up the implementations and procedures of the government, and to implement the recommendations of the UPR while including the gender, so that this gender concept shouldn't be in isolation with other concepts. And also we tackled the issue regarding our impressions. What do we think about this conference? In fact, this conference for us was an opportunity, an excellent opportunity for us to exchange information and knowledge and ideas, and to have an idea regarding experiments and the Ukraine experience regarding the UPR. We, as a Sudani delegation, it was quite an opportunity to be in coordination with certain entities we were seeking to know and to meet, and this was a very excellent opportunity done through this conference. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. In the outset, I thank all the organizers for holding such valuable events in terms of organization and the logistics, and even the interpreters who cooperated a lot in order to bring this event to fruition and to deliver accurate information. I think that during these days we were honored by getting acquainted with the Arab elites from all the sectors, the government, the civil society and the media. I think that these meetings will no doubt help building modern civilized Arabs, where the basic rights of the citizens are respected and governance is achieved and social accountability is entrenched. And hence I suggest continuing such events and conferences and inviting all the participants in any conference held in any Arab country, inviting also participants from other countries, because this will enhance in the exchange of experience and partnership on the way to accountability, social accountability. The Arab governments should undertake all the steps under the umbrella of the change revolutions in the Arab countries, and also enacting the needed legislations and respect of constitutions and enacts and laws, which leads to stability and economic development in these countries. Thank you very much.
If we could kindly move to Jordan, please. Request that you please read your remarks. We don't have time for a PowerPoint. I'm very sorry, sir. If you could just kindly read your remarks. I apologize, but we will circulate the PowerPoint presentation. It will be up on our website. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, the Jordanian delegation, we conciled on many ideas. First of which is the importance of this meeting. The most prominent point in this meeting is explaining the concept of social accountability to a great extent through explaining the following point. Speaking about the main stakeholders when it comes to social accountability, whether the civil society or the media or the government, the judiciary or even citizens. And we obviously touched upon the responsibilities and the roles vested in these entities, and we focused on making use of the modern technology in terms of social accountability, and lastly using the figure and the digital indicators to link between the quantitative and qualitative analysis. Also, we benefited from this conference in identifying and defining the roles of the civil society in effecting social accountability through developing the role of the civil society as a mediator between the government and the citizens, and the main source for information and the proliferation of such information, as well as focusing on the importance of interaction between the civil society and media with its two parts, the traditional and the modern media, and also the focus on the role of civil society in the participation of assessing the local administration. I think that these are the most important points. Also important is enhancing the role of the civil society in the supervision of the budget, the general budget of the state, and focusing on the civil society role in combating corruption. The second pivot, which I think we benefited from this conference, is the networking. I think that this conference has helped we, as the Jordan delegations, to network with many entities, whether international organizations or country delegations, or our peers from the NGOs and civil society organizations and human rights national organizations. I think that this conference has helped the participants understand the situation in the neighboring Egypt, and in this situation we pray to God for Egypt to pass through this dire situation and to reach democracy. We think, in light of this meeting, that organization has been useful. Also positive is a focus on the national experiences, whether in the field of accountability or the UPR field. The shortcomings of this meeting, so to speak, we think that there were no equal representation of all the parties from many countries. We noticed that in some countries, in absence of the government representatives and the UN agencies. On the other hand, we found that some delegations speak pure language, pure government language, and hence we would have liked more balance in this respect. The last pivot is the steps for next year. We agreed on many pivots that we will work on when we return back to Jordan. The first pivot is the raising education and raising information for all parties, whether civil society organizations or government or media or the judiciary or even the private sector, the parties and the youth, and so forth. Also, we agreed on boosting social accountability tools and mechanisms through the following steps: forming national alliances from the NGOs in the following fields. The first field, preparation of a shadow report for the civil society organizations about the UPR, so that the biggest number of civil society organizations participate in this alliance, and to for this report to be comprehensive and integrated, and also follow-up mechanism for the program for the UPR in Jordan. Also, we agreed on the necessity to work to pressure towards defining and disseminating and disclosing all items of the public expenditure and budgets, and also international loans and the international agreements which entails financial obligations on Jordan. Also, we agreed on the importance to strengthen and boost the civil society organizations through focus on the methods of governance, transparency and disclosure of financing sources, and the periodic exchange handover of power inside the institutions. And also we agreed to lay down a yearly plan based on the following pivots. First, pressuring to call for the amendment of the legislations which doesn't cope with the human rights and social accountability, especially in the field of the right for access of information, the freedom of expression and opinion, and the freedom of assembly and organization. Holding many intellectual and educative workshops and using the social media networks to deliver the recommendations of these alliances, and trying to gain advocacy for our recommendations, and hence, and lastly, resorting to the judiciary, and hence there are severe infringements for human rights and disclosing such information. Thank you very much. And in conclusion, please allow me to extend my sincere thanks to the organizers and all the colleagues who helped in the logistic support, and especially the interpreters and the ushers and the accommodation committee. Thank you very much.
Delegation, please.
صباح الخير وتحية.
Good morning and hello everybody. We would like to welcome you all, and appreciation should be paid to the UNDP. We are not to have lengthy report or speech. I will delve directly into the report. The remark on the conference. It was good opportunity to exchange experiences and share experiences amongst different countries, Arab and non-Arab countries. It was also good opportunity to talk about democratic governance and UPR and the importance of follow-up in this regard. It was also good opportunity to network with different organizations for the importance of follow-up. But the topic wasn't tackled thoroughly from all its aspects. We tackled the problem without solutions. I hope that next conference will be more inclusive and comprehensive and give more opportunity for more discussion and interactive sessions. And also a strange remark is that judiciary was not tackled in this conference. This is the general remarks. As for the main elements, in order to enhance the UPR is to follow up all the recommendations and the implementation of the recommendations of the UPR reports, to be active, and also to build the capacity of the CSOs to enhance social accountability and to enhance the partnership between civil society, the state and the private sector for networking, and also pertaining to governance, to emphasize the mechanisms in order to guarantee independent judiciary and monitoring and overseeing organizations, and to improve their powers, with a suggestion that the judiciary independence will be a main element and pillar in the coming conference. I will not forget, and I'm very keen on, and also the whole group is keen on extending thanks to the interpreters for all the services they provided during the days. Thank you.
Libya, please.
بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول
In the name of Allah, Bismillah, salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah, peace upon Prophet Muhammad. And we would like to talk about that social accountability necessitates long time in Libya. Unlike other countries, And this is because of many considerations or many reasons. Because we believe that this kind of accountability should have state organizations to work with them, including social accountability in parallel to all kinds of accountabilities. We don't have such organizations and institutions right now in Libya as they should be, or as effective as it should be. We at least would like to rebuild such organizations and institutions. As for the main recommendations, first, as we said before, we would like to build organizations, state organizations, in order to deal with corruption in all its aspects, and we are looking forward to having higher percentages in the future. And we would like also to have a legislation in Libya, because it's a case would like to build something out of scratch. And we believe that we as Libyan delegation, we are looking forward to including constitution, to have something about the general principles of transparency and social accountability and combating corruption. And the delegation will try to provide proposals to the National Committee and all the official organizations in Libya as for social accountability and how to combat corruption in Libya. But as for the conference, we think that it's very good conference, give us opportunity to know each other and to be acquainted to lots of important people. Now I will summarize the most important steps as for the Libyan case. We should rebuild and reform the anti-corruption organizations, whether judicial or overseeing and monitoring organizations, CSOs and media, within a framework of a comprehensive anti-corruption national strategy. Also to issue legislations for all the organizations to spread all the resolutions and reports, and that the citizens and the civil society organizations should have access to data and information that help them in combating corruption. And also having meetings and workshops to include the civil society organizations and governmental organizations in legislative and executive, in order to enhance the linkage and the cooperation amongst the state from one hand and the CSOs and media on the other hand, in order also to have a positive impact in implementing our policies. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that the new Libya government and people are serious to combat corruption, and we hope that to have best ways in this regard, including social accountability. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We cede the floor to Morocco.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome to all of you. Please allow me, on behalf of the Moroccan delegation, comprised of representatives of the institutions and representatives of the civil society organization and the media, to congratulate the organizers of this conference, which enabled us to discuss different ideas about a very important topic in the current situation. We also thank the UNDP for the efforts they exerted. The ideas we reached through this conference and what are the procedures to be taken in order to enhance social accountability in Morocco. This meeting enabled us some sort of awareness of the importance of social accountability. But we are sorry, we feel so sorry that this term is not defined as requested. Also, there is a necessity to place some indicators in terms of social accountability in each country. This is a very important point. Also, enhancing the efforts between the three components: the state, the media, and civil society. And also supporting the new media and social networks in this respect. Also incorporating some other institutions, especially the local elected representatives and the government, private sector, as well as the business world, the judiciary, and also, more important, the citizens. On the short term, we should undertake procedures in order to define the concepts and to reconvene such events and forums on the local level in order to disseminate the concepts we achieved here and the recommendations. In terms of human rights, we should agree first on the international reference for human rights. In this respect, we would like to increase such meetings on the national level in order to agree on a national level and a national agenda to which affiliated is the procedures and action plan. There are points of convergence and divergence between the Arab countries. This forum has given us an opportunity to bring together the 6 important entities in the UN, and we should bring those 2 institutions, the UNDP and the Human Rights Council, together. The openness on the Arab Islamic arena and undertaking some procedures on the institutional level on this respect. On the national respect, we should take constitutional measures in relation to collaborative democracy in order to bridge the gap. Also, strategic planning, which will place indicators for measuring to what extent human rights are respected. And Morocco should abide by presenting reports about the situation in terms of human rights. Also, we should take into consideration to provide follow-up reports on the social mobilization in order to place a strategy for fighting corruption. We should be open on the social horizons in order to prevail a society of integrity and equality. Observations about the organizational aspect of this forum. We have some comments. First, in terms of the time allocated for the interventions, 10 minutes, we see that this is very short time. Also, in terms of the discussions, the same remark goes for. There should be previous preparation on part of the organizers and the UNDP in order to administer an assessment of the experiences and the presentations before they are presented in the forum. Also, there should be a previous notification for specifying the topics to be discussed, diversifying of the experiences and openness to other countries, especially Latin American countries. The basic recommendations for Morocco, we abode in our group to convene a conference to re-analyze these recommendations and disseminating them along with groups from the civil society in order to place a plan. There is a suggestion as well from the ministerial delegation about human rights to convene such meeting. Also, enhancing the networking between civil society and media in terms of discussions and dialogue, follow-up and enhancing of capabilities. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks to the organizers of this conference. In terms of our general impressions and the most important ideas, we had about what had taken place in the past 4 days, I would like to point out that the main ideas revolve around the importance of social accountability for all parties. It is a win-win situation or a win-win relation all the parties make use of, rather than being a relation based on the balance of powers. There are no losers from all components or parties. Also, we came to the conclusion in terms of the social accountability, the importance of the political will. Political will is very important in terms of social accountability. Whether this political will is political or international. Social accountability is a human value that's not related to geography. We also came to the conclusion that it's important to build the capacities of all the parties, the civil society with all its components, non-governmental organizations, media, private sector, syndications, trade unions, all components of society, of the civil society, and the official society and the international society in terms of social accountability. Without building capacity for all the components, they will not be able to fulfill their role, and they cannot be held accountable and will not yield any tangible results. Also, we would like to explain on the government part that there should be acceptance by those who undertake the public affairs and the decision makers and policy makers for the importance of social accountability and its procedures. The officials should accept accountability, and they should understand that responsibility means accountability from the other part. As far as I'm holding responsibility, I should accept being held accountable from those who receive the services. Also, raising awareness is very important. And we shed light on this topic once more, raising awareness for all the parties. And we discovered that there is a huge linkage between social accountability and governance and fighting corruption. The more social accountability, the more we are able to reach reforms which leads to governance. The more governance and the more reforms, the less is corruption, and the more the efforts of fighting corruption are fruitful. Also, we discovered that there's great importance in using the budgets as a means or a tool for analysis. Not only we should know how to analyze or view the budget. It's not important to view the budget. What is important is to know how to use it as a tool to analyze it and to use it in the field of social accountability. Also, we found that there are very important assessment means in terms of social accountability which lead to drafting the path to where are we heading, where are the shortcomings, whether these means or indicators or measurements related to the UPR for human rights or the assessments of governance or the assessments of fighting corruption. The three assessments are good measurement tools which leads to social accountability based on sound information, which leads to sound accountability and reforms in the right path and yields good results, which is the core of accountability. The core of accountability is not to hold the people accountable, but to reach tangible results in the end. In relation to the shortcomings, the Palestine delegation see that many models and initiatives that are very good and stressing the importance of achieving and accessing information and data, but we see that there is no linkage between what was presented and how to get the information and how to utilize this information and data in enhancing social accountability in terms of the reading of and the analysis and using them to achieve the desired reforms. The Palestine delegation, and to answer the question of the main points or steps that will be taken during next year with which we can boost social accountability, we see drafting a plan of the national campaign of raising the awareness of boosting social accountability so that all parties participate. We see that social accountability, as we said before, is a win-win situation. All the parties should be concerned, all parties should participate in this campaign, whether civil society organizations, government organizations, the media, trade unions and syndications. All these are stakeholders, and hence all of them should participate in this campaign, which seeks raising the awareness of the importance and necessity of entrenching social accountability and enabling all stakeholders from understanding social accountability and practice it on the ground in order to lead to the required reforms. Also, we would like to adopt the sectoral approach. So we found that it's important to work from a sectoral perspective on an initiative to boost social accountability in two fields we see as very important for the reform. And justice. Those are the justice sector and the health sector. Adopting the principle of social accountability in these two fields may be one of the initiatives that we would work on in the next year. And in conclusion, I take this opportunity to call you all, on behalf of myself as a representative of the Palestinian delegation, starting tomorrow, you can be invited for the state number 194 in the United Nations, the state of Palestine.
Thank you so much.
شكرا جزيلا. والآن زملاؤنا من اليمن.
أولا أود أن أتقدم بالشكر
I would like to extend my thanks to the organizers of the conference. As for the conference, it represented an opportunity for the participants to exchange experience and expertise and information, and the topics that were tackled and the importance of the subjects and the topics tackled. In fact, one of the major points is to raise awareness regarding social accountability, building capacity for the students, private sector and civil society and all brackets of society, and also the accessibility of the budget for the public regarding social accountability, and to be included in the constitution, and to prepare literature to build a participatory approach and networking with different entities, and to include the national and the local reality, and to be included in the social accountability and the necessity to activate the relative ministers. And one of the most important actions and steps that should be taken, the governmental, private sector and civil society to raise awareness and to qualify consultants regarding social accountability, and to implement initiatives on social accountability, enhancement of transparency, the right for information accessibility, and to know the means and methods to get information and how to use this information in social accountability, and to improve the quality of services provided to the citizens, and to disseminate the culture of social accountability, and to conduct awareness campaigns, advocacy in order to include the principles of social accountability in the Constitution. Thank you. أود أن أتوجه بالشكر الجزيل لكافة
If this is a mini General Assembly, and that we've had the opportunity to hear fantastic feedback from the various countries on ways forward. I'd also like to thank you for sharing some of your impressions of this event, including some of the shortcomings. I think it's extremely valid and important for the international community, i.e. the UN and UNDP, to also be socially accountable to the constituents that they serve. So we are not immune to criticism or identifying our weaknesses, and so I very much appreciate your candor. I will not try and provide a synopsis of all that was said, although I was, to the extent that my hand is a bit tired, carefully taking notes, and I would request that those country delegations provide their comments in writing to the ushers in order that we can ensure that they are included in the final report. There were some common threads around the significance of definitions, raising awareness. There was a focus on gender inclusion, which is very encouraging. A renewed activity sets around the Universal Periodic Review, institutional strengthening with a special emphasis on civil society and media, as well as other points about participatory budgeting and anti-corruption measures. And from this very encouraging list, I feel privileged to have participated, because I think that was the intention of this event, was to enable people to start thinking about the next steps that could be taken at the national level to focus on strengthening social accountability. After all, UNDP is mainly a convening power, but the action lies at the national level and the local level, with counterparts in government, civil society, media, the private sector. So we look forward for you to take back the content of this event and ensuring that it's translated into a national process. And we've heard some very good recommendations along those lines. Before I have the privilege of bringing our regional director, Ms. Alia Al-Dali, to the podium, I do want to mention one or two things. First, this afternoon there will be a side event from 2 to 6 o'clock on the significance of the post-2015 agenda. We'd very much strongly encourage you to participate, because this is about shaping the future of the development agenda, and there were a lot of questions raised earlier. So that will be in this room starting at 2 o'clock. Sorry. Secondly, there will be an evaluation that is circulated, so again, encourage people to fill out your comments. The gallery, the HIV gallery, that has been doing a wonderful job at supporting people living with HIV and selling some of their most beautiful items, will be closing at lunch. So please, last minute shopping, we would like to encourage you to do that. There will be a group picture just prior to lunch. So please, as we move from the closing, I would request that you gather around the pool for the group picture. And lastly, checkout is at 5 p.m. and after 5 p.m. it will cost $10 per hour. Can I kindly ask that people don't quite circulate the evaluation just yet, because I want to concentrate on the closing remarks as well, and I don't want that to be a distraction. But as we're concluding, if I could please call to the podium Ms. Alia Al-Dali. I'm sorry to conclude my own remarks on some housekeeping issues, but I think it's important that we're all aware of what's going to happen next. I now have the privilege and the pleasure of welcoming my boss to the table, who has been a deep supporter of this event, has facilitated and accommodated all of the proceedings. She will make final remarks pertaining to the recommendations, a brief synopsis of the event, and officially close the event. Thank you. Alia.
شكرا جيف شكرا على كلماتك الطيبة.
Thank you, Jeff, for your nice words.
سيداتي سادتي.
Ladies and gentlemen,
لقد أحسست خلال الأربع أيام
I
الماضية
felt during the last 4 days that there is a change in our region, the viewpoints and the ideas that you have presented and you have discussed were semi-impossible to be tackled in that event 2 years ago. Mohamed Bouazizi and others are really, we are all proud of him and proud of you, which lead to such a transition in our societies. And as during this week, this Arab uprising and awakening is not to be dominated by the elite who are dominating the powers and the wealth, and to be distributed fairly enough and to build a future based on the human dignity and human rights. The transition or the transitions is like a sea full of movements that can maybe serious and very violent for some time or calm for some other times. This kind of mobility and movements and changes are not only through elections, which can be at certain periods of times and needs a kind of oversee and monitoring transition, and this kind of mobility is also have a number of aspects and a number of actors, demonstrators in the streets, media, newspapers, campaigns, judiciary, politicians, parties, civil society, those who are working advocacy for human rights, and the most important thing is to defend the human dignity and their right in living securely, safely, away of injustice and favoritism. At the end of these 4 days, I would like to extend my thanks to all of you for your participation and interaction, in addition to the sideline events. And I would like to inform you that I've received a number of congratulations messages from the regional office and also the Democratic Governance Center in New York. And both are looking forward to seeing the results and recommendations of this conference, which will be an important part of the UNDP policy in the future. I would like also to say that we have met more than 25 times in the last 4 days with meetings and parallel sessions, media sessions, theoretical sessions, practical sessions, and we exchanged and shared experiences, and we all were able to move from one topic to the other very easily and cooperatively. Your participation and your contributions were not only limited to our deliberations in this room and that's it, but it was extended to wider scope and public through the live streaming and the tweets which allowed us to reach 3,500,000 followers. And I would like also to extend my thanks for your cooperation in making a conference like this a success, because of your patience and your commitment and your interest in the topics tackled by this conference. The question we still have by the end of this conference is that what's next? What else? We have the conclusions and recommendations of your sessions and your remarks and your observations, except for the last session. And we come up with the coming recommendations. Amongst the challenges that we were tackled in the last 4 days is the current situation, since the citizen, and here I emphasize that the independency and that depends on the country or the state to be provided by everything, rights and services. The challenge here is to change this relation and to be accountability and the relations both ways. Base of equality and rights, and there is a suggestion to deepen the relations amongst the social about the social accountability. There is necessity to respect human rights and to be adopted by the humanity principle and dignity through enhancing that the citizen will know their rights and values through which the state can be accountable in front of them. There is also an emphasis on improving the information accessibility as a prerequisite of transparency and accountability, and we listened to this idea in the last session. It's also of paramount importance to issue legislations to protect the assembly and right of association and independency of CSOs and media. Meanwhile, emphasize the role of and the accountability of those in a constructive manner. Those actors capacities should be built in how to put the state accountable. And there is also a need of transparency and accountability of the CSOs, media and newspapers in front of the citizens working with them. It was also clear that the three actors, state, civil society and media, all together are responsible for change. And we cannot identify responsibility or put it on one of the shoulders of one of them and not the other. The states which are enjoyed of open representation and the citizen trusts can lead transformation, transition and democratization through interaction and inclusion in dialogue, while the Arab region with this heavy past necessitates the effort to work hand in hand and to deepen the role played by the CSOs and medias. As for deliberations about the governance assessment, through analyzing information and data on governance, local governance, national governance, and regional governance alike, and how to be used in order to affect the policies and to change them and towards the best or the better. In this regard, our institutions their capacities should be built and also should monitor the mechanisms. There is also a need to move from the culture of confidentiality and secrecy of information to the culture of transparency. That means to change the mentality or the mindset of the politicians, the public servants, and also the citizens, and to have a common understanding on how accessing information, analyzing information reasonably by the citizen and civil society. Governance assessment during transition towards more democratic societies in the Arab region can play an important role in introducing the democratic participation and involvement at different levels. Also, local governance assessment, if managed properly, participatorily, can enhance the feeling of patriotism through informing them about their rights and to have consultations between them and their governments. This can be applied on the segments of the societies which are not usually part of such kind of involvement. Women and children who are all the time marginalized should be included in the transition. As for the UPR, the discussions and deliberations show that the main challenge in our region is related to change impressions. What do we mean by that? First, to change the impression of the importance of the UPR that can be defined as one of the channels of accountability of people and the state, the governments. The UPR is not owned by the Human Rights Council in Geneva. It opened the doors for actual interaction with the civil society organizations, hence the citizens and communities served by such civil society. Also, we should change the relation between the state and the civil society. There's also a dire need to deepen the dialogue between these two actors. There's also a need to have a kind of mutual education and information to change this relation, which is very hot and a long time ago. There's also a need to change the impression about the civil society organizations. So they are not only working in advocacy, there's a dire need to communicate with the media in all its forms. As mentioned before, responsibility is not only on the shoulders of those three actors, state, civil society, and media or press, but the civil society organizations, the UN organizations, can, through exchanging information and experience from other countries, and also building the capacity, the confidence through the initiatives that all the state, civil society can contribute in. And I would like to emphasize that and underline that these recommendations are all for all of us, and I cannot be abiding by all what each country will do or each group will do. But I can be abiding by providing support to all of you through experiences and assistance which we have in the regional center of UNDP in Cairo, regional center in Cairo. I would like also to express my appreciation for all those staff of the center, and that was not be without working as one team in harmony with each other. It was also possible now to name all the staff, but I should appreciate especially, and I hope that whom I will mention their names to stand up. I would like to appreciate the role played by Nina, Mitra, and Reem. Jeff, who worked very hard, tirelessly, during the last 6 months in order to organize this conference. As for organization, I would like to appreciate the efforts of the management team, head by Tahir. I don't know whether Tahir here is not or not. And all the volunteers and the ushers, in addition to the interpretation team. In conclusion, I would like to extend my thanks to all the organizations participating in OHCHR and Women and EDIA for supporting and enhancing this conference. And special thanks to all of you, all the participants, for coming through with long distances in order to give us and to share your experiences and knowledge. And here I hope that you will be able to visit this great city with all its civilization, with all its variety and civilization. Thank you so much. Peace be upon you all.
And with that, the gavel goes. We are closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please pass the evaluations to one of the ushers, please, on the way out. Thank you. There will be a picture by the swimming pool in 10 minutes. 10 minutes, please. Picture by the swimming pool.